You're watching Pyro Media Network.
Thank you for tuning in. If this is your first time joining us, welcome. We hope your experience is fruitful. Please feel free to visit our website to find out how you can join our growing family. While we are loading your experience, please do us a quick favor and hit that like button from whichever platform you're watching or listening on. Also, share so others may enjoy as well. And we hope you would consider hitting that subscribe or follow button so you can check out more of our amazing content. All right, let's start the show.
Hello, and welcome to It's Just Kim. Yes, live and in color. Oh, it's so good to be here today. You know, I have to admit that it has been, what is it, Tuesday? It's been a long week already. We've dealt with some things the last couple weeks, and you know, sometimes it gets heavy. But I was determined to do this show because I really feel good about the topic that I'm going to discuss today. And not just that, just the guests that I have with me today. So I'm excited about that. So even though, you know, it's been a rough couple weeks, 2 or 3 weeks, it's been a little heavy today dealing with funerals and different things like that. But, you know, I feel like if we press through, you know, we'll get the reward. So I'm excited tonight about this show. A couple weeks ago, 2 or 3 weeks ago, I had the opportunity, pleasure, to work with a couple of gentlemen who are very special to me, both for various reasons. I had an opportunity to work with them in a leadership workshop, Leading with Love. And so I think I was just excited because I was on the same panel with 2 doctors, okay? And we presented it was kind of like a pilot test seminar, if you will, workshop. And we were just testing it out on our churches. And you'll see what I'm talking about when I bring my guest in today. It was an amazing time. It was a time of growth and learning for all of us, I'm sure. So as I, you know, go to the green room and get my guests, I want you to really tune in. I want you to invite or call, you know, send the link to someone you know who's in leadership within the church, because it's going to be a really good show tonight. And we're going to talk about a lot of great things as it relates to leadership in the church and who we are and where we are today in the society that we live in. Okay, so go ahead, you go get your friends, and I'm going to go get my guests. All right, I'll be right back. Hello, hello, gentlemen.
Hello.
Greetings.
How are you guys today?
Good. Tired,
I'm
just like you.
tired, I know, and I appreciate you so much for being here with me tonight on It's Just Kim. But I couldn't do this particular show without you, okay? Without both of you. Um, I first want to introduce both of you. First, just because he's at the top of my screen and to the right, Dr. Patrick Ross, who doubles as my son-in-law. No, let me back up. He doubles as my son-in-law. We don't do that in and out of law stuff, okay? We don't do the in-law or outlaws, okay? And he's an amazing person, amazing pastor, amazing man, a scholar. And he is a good husband to my daughter, Christian, my eldest daughter. They've been married over 2 years now. And I tell you, Patrick came into our family and he's just been a delight. He's fit right in. He is just so special to all of us, actually, the entire kit and caboodle, okay? But I thank God for him, and he can tell you more about who he is and his church, his ministry, and all of that. And then I also have the pleasure of having my guy, Dr. Dante Morrison. Now, Dante, that's my dude right there. Okay. We've been knowing each other for a very long time. Wow, Dante, what, over 20 some odd years?
Yeah.
Yes.
Since 2002.
Wow. Okay. So over 20, what is that? 3? I'm not good at math.
Yeah, about 23, 24 years. Yeah.
24 years. And I tell you, I loved him then and I love him now. So he is an amazing person as well, Dr. Dante Morrison. He has his doctorate, and he is so humble with it, you know? I mean, not that he didn't work hard for it, but he's so humble with it because he still serves on ministry at our Church One Ministries, and just serves so eloquently and just digs right in and just provides all the leadership and all the great things that we're looking for at Church One. So with further ado, I want to get right into our topic because we have a lot that we can chew on. We were part of a not seminar, I want to keep calling it a seminar, but a workshop a couple weeks ago. And it's kind of like I was saying earlier, it was a test pilot for our 2 churches because we're really looking to develop it and kind of share it with other ministries. And so I'm looking forward to that. We even got some survey results just to kind of know where people are and what they think about the information that we shared and all of that. But I want to first start by asking, how did this begin? Where did it get started? And I think you guys had told me a little bit about how it all started, but either one of you, whoever wants to start.
Wow. Dr. Ross? Okay, I'll go. So basically what happened was, I think probably around last October, November, Dr. Ross and I went out to eat. We were at La Barca, on Vermont. You know about La Barca? We was at La Barca, getting us some burritos and tacos.
I ain't had that before, so
yeah,
I'm feeling away.
we went out to lunch, and just through the conversation, I shared just my concern about the direction of the Black church and where we're going as far as revitalizing it and ensuring that all are feeling welcome. And it just really sparked conversations about what can we do and how can we use our scholar. My doctorate is in global leadership, so that's where I'm at. I'm all about building community and how do we make things work together to secure funding and whatnot. And just through that, I was also sharing my work that I do within the LGBTQ community and faith-based community, and how do we bridge gaps and just strengthen communication and relationships. We can just have healthy spaces of worship for all, really just all people. And through that conversation, you're sitting with somebody and their wheels are turning and you're looking like, okay, I think he feel me. We going. And then he just said, well, what we gonna do? And I love a solution-oriented person. It's like we can complain all day, but what we gonna do? And for me, it was a phenomenal opportunity to really hear somebody listen to me, and this is my idea. This is what I think we can do. And from that, we just carved out the conversation, and we knew we needed a third person to really bring it in with that loving warmth.
Hey.
Because we were going to come like this, like Rob, just listen. And we said, we need that different energy to come in and just kind of massage the folks back, after we get through it. And then, of course, that was none other than you. And the rest is history.
Wow. And let me tell you, and I know you guys think I'm playing it because I'm not, okay? I was really, I don't know, shocked, I guess, when you all asked me to be on the panel with you. And I'm fairly smart. I get that. I know a couple things about myself, but just to know that I was considered to work with you on such a great project, and an evolving project at that, it did a lot for me. Got my wheels to turning about other things, concerning myself and some of my goals and dreams and visions for me and my education and things like that. And, and then I have these two people who are always pushing me, right? And so, it's good to hang out with people that push you. It really is. It's good to hang out with people who say, look, we already see what you can do. We just need you to go and do it, right? And so that's what I get from the both of you. So it meant a lot for me to participate, in this project. So let me ask you this. As leaders, because the topic or the title of the workshop was Leading with Love. And, people tend to, I don't know, let me ask this question before I get off into that. What, as leaders, what does it mean? How can we define what leading with love really means? What does that mean when we say as church leaders, as ministry leaders, that we're leading with love? Because either we're leading with love or we're leading a different kind of way. Mm-hmm. So whoever wants to start.
Okay, well, thank you. Thanks for the privilege of being with you two. And before I at least attempt to respond to that question, I wanted to also say, Queen Mom, we see the doctor in you. So, it was just a natural thing to ask you to join us. And so I just figured I'd throw that out there.
Did you feel the tired that came over me? All right, let's go.
Okay. So for me, I was thinking about actually what does, when we talk about love, what does that mean in essence? And so leading with love to me, and it has to do with filtering like this question in the back of your mind. Are you moving in the direction of a person's highest good in that moment? Because that's the essence of love. It is the love of God. He gave because he saw the highest good in us. And so our response is the same. Are we moving in the direction of a person's highest good? And so it means that, particularly just in the workshop, it was so poignant. It means that people know when they come to you broken, are they going to leave the same, or are they going to leave better? And so that's a way I would define it.
Okay, all right, Dr. Dante.
And for me, it's basically in the same vein. I think that people take on, it's all about intent. Why do you want to be a leader? What is your goal for being a leader? Are you doing it just to have a title or a tagline behind your name? Are you really trying to lead people to a place of good and a place where they can be better? And you're doing it with pure intentions, not to ruin or destroy somebody because it's based upon where you feel they should go, but kind of where you believe that God is leading them to. And I know that Bishop Urban always uses the passage, train up a child in the way they should go. You know, and sometimes that gets misconstrued because as parents, you can wonder, well, that's going to be the next doctor, football player, this. Well, what if God has another plan? And the way they should go is not where you think they should be going. And then you end up getting in the way and you pulling them away from their divine purpose and destiny. So I think leading with love is really focusing on the person and ensuring that we are just helping the person process their journey the right way.
Yes, I totally agree with both of you, you know, and even for myself, leading with love, I think it has a lot to do with people. And I think you kind of said this too, knowing your real intent, you know, but behind how you guide them and your leadership, they need to know that you are, you're being real with them, you know, you're not fake. And also for me, it's about putting yourself second, you know, when it comes to, like you said, they're good, what they need, the needs of the people. Because when people think when you're in leadership that you're just sitting around getting served and, you know, people are attending to you and, you know, and making you feel good about yourself. But no, it's a lot of work being a leader. And if you don't do it with the right intent, if you don't do it with the love of God, and it's got to be God's love, it can't be our love. It cannot be our love, you know, because we don't have the right kind of love. We get tired of people and things and we're like, all right, that's enough, had enough, you know, but God's the kind of love that God has, you know, you go that extra mile of the way. And when people know that you really care about them, I mean, you really genuinely care about their life, about their connection to God, you know, about their relationship with the Lord. And that's important to you, just like it's important to them. I think they will come under your leadership and they will feel the love that you have. Let me ask you this. And I think you kind of touched on this more so, Dr. Patrick. How the church is changing, and we can see that. We can see society and in general, how all of that is changing socially, it's changing, you know, with the different generational differences, it's changing. I mean, I feel like people are, the expectation is for more transparency. You know, these younger people, they're not looking for the faking and shaking. They won't have it.
Right.
You know, I mean, you can see on social media now where people are speaking up about how they feel about ministry, about preachers, about church. They're very transparent about what they think and how they feel about that. And I think back as a young person myself in church, there were some things that I didn't really care for, I didn't like, but I wouldn't dare speak on it. You know, I would not dare speak on it. And I just dealt with it. I'm sure like the rest of you, we just dealt with it. We just went on about our way. We just did what we were told by our elders. But now let's talk about that, kind of unpack that just a little bit, Dr. Patrick, some of the things that you shared, how the church is changing and what we need to do as leaders.
So I mean, I think you hit it. The generations coming behind us, they're not leaving God, they're leaving institutions.
Yeah.
And because they feel disconnected. They feel disconnected from the institutions and those who are leading the institutions. And I agree that this generation, and I say the generation coming behind us, but also those that are present and those that have come before us. They want transparency because the energy, the era has changed. There's shifts in seasons, and so people want transparency, authenticity. They want accountability, and they want to know that the leader at the front is human, and not just performing humanity, but a real live person who who cries, who bleeds, who laughs, who triumphs, who falls. And so I think those things are key. But if people feel disconnected, just to what you said earlier, people can sense when you're genuine with them. They can sense that. And they can also sense when you're going through the motions with them. So, so that's what I would say to that.
Yeah, especially this generation that we're dealing with. On my job, I work with I would say probably about 80% Gen Zers and maybe 15% millennial, and then maybe 5% Gen X. I'm the only baby boomer in the building, okay? I'm like the mother hen over everybody, grandma to some, But even the way we see, young people in the church and how they feel about the church and leaders in the church, it's the same even on my job. These young people, they will speak up, they will speak out, they have an opinion, they use all their PTO. I think back on my generation, we were just dedicated to the cause, and it didn't matter, if we needed rest or we needed relaxation, if the work had to get done, we were not going to take PTO. As a matter of fact, I think we bragged about that. We bragged, oh, I got so much sick time saved up. I have all this But you know what? These young people are more out there, more real. They're more transparent with how they feel, and they voice it. And it was a little rough for me at first when I would have some of my staff come to me and say, I feel this way about this. And I was like, wow, you know what? Let me kind of get myself together where I can answer these questions and not be offended by the fact that you're asking me questions. I think that was kind of what maybe some of our forefathers, they got offended if questions were asked. You don't ask no questions. You don't question God. You don't question the pastor. You don't question the leaders of the church. But that's changing now, and we have to be in a position, we have to be in a mindset, and our hearts have to be open to answer the questions, because like you said, Dr. Patrick, they're not leaving God. They love God. They love the Lord. They leave in the church. Right. They're leaving the institution.
And I think you brought up a very good point. And I think it's critical for people my age and older. I'm 54, my age and over, to listen to the younger generation, because they really are the why generation. And why being, they want to know why. You can't do this. Why? Our generation, like you just said, we're told no, that no is flat across the board. You don't question it. But we want to call this new gen, they feel so empowered. Well, they're not empowered. They're actually quite courageous, because they're pushing against systems that oppress their elders. They're pushing against systems that kind of held us in bondage and made us act in a way that was not always loving. It was not always warm. It was not always welcoming. And they're trying to understand, well, why are you like that? And that's that intergenerational trauma that we don't often address, because sometimes when you're older and you're asked why by a young person, if you don't have the answer, now you feel like, I should know this. Well, you don't make me look stupid. Don't do that. Instead of trying to really figure out, how can I best work with this new generation that wants to do better and wants to see things better. And I think we have to get out of the mindset that they're trying to destroy the church. They're really not. They're trying to better it. They're trying to show us where the flaws are, so we can have more inclusive spaces for worship where all can feel welcome. And I think that was the beauty of what we did, because we hit the church from every single aspect. Dr. Ross talked about religion versus relationship.
Yes.
And some of us are so rooted in religion that we have completely threw the relationship with God out the window to sustain religion. And that is what this new generation is trying to debunk. To be like, listen, you say you love God, me wearing pants to church as a woman should not exclude me from being able to worship.
Right. Right. Some of the dresses do more damage than the pants.
Let's be clear.
Let
Like, you want a dress? This all I got. Now what?
Yeah,
This
you
all
got
I
that dress, right. And I remember being of the mindset when I was younger, in not when we were pastors, but when I was at my father-in-law's church, that I felt bad for young women who would come to church in what they had. You know, their dress was kind of short, skirts were short. Of course, we weren't wearing pants, you know, but their skirts and dresses were kind of short, but that was what they had. And we wanted them to come to church. But there was some conflict there sometimes too, because some of the older people in the church were like, you know, you can't come in here with that short skirt on no more. Don't you come back in this church with that short skirt, girl. You know, that's not how you dress at church. But what if this is all I have? So to that point, I remember being a young person. I mean, a young person, like not married and no kids, because y'all know I got married young and had kids young. So this was before all that. And I remember a young woman who had came. She was amazing with singing. Oh my God, this girl could blow. And we, as a young group, we wanted her to be in our youth church. I mean, our youth choir. And so she came. All she had was her little short skirts, because you know she was about that life, right? And so they were on her, and I said, "Hey, how about we go shopping? Let's go shopping, and you get what you feel like is church clothes at that time." And I felt like that's the way to address it, because apparently she's only working with what she has.
Right.
And I feel like we as leaders of this church, especially when most of our churches, we're not even into the silk stockings and, you know, and matching suits and hats and gloves and all this kind of stuff. I feel like we have to make sure that we are making available to this young group of people what they need. If we feel it's inappropriate, they're going to ask us why. Why is this inappropriate? Why is it inappropriate for me to wear this to church? You know? And so we need to be there with answers, but not just that, not with an answer, but with a solution. Let me help you. Let me reach out to you. Let me, hey, let's go shopping. I need to go get me a outfit. Let's go shopping together. It doesn't even have to be about you're inappropriate, so I want to take you shopping. That's kind of sedity in itself. But how about you and I go shopping together? Maybe that's an opportunity for me to get to know you, to spend some time with you, and that type of thing.
But it's also important to note that when we do take those stances, that our, I don't want to say judgment, that our finger pointing of why they're inappropriate, it better make sense.
Yeah.
Because if I say, you know, you shouldn't wear that to church, and my reason does not even make sense to me, but it was passed up my ancestors, I need to pause and say, you know, yeah, you kind of right. You know,
right.
I mean, we're in California. It's always hot. And you're telling me I need to dress like this to come to church when your church does not have AC. It's like we need to make sense with our correction. And if we honestly know it doesn't make sense, we have to be mature enough in our walk with Christ to say, yeah, you're right, young person. I feel you. This doesn't make sense. Just come on in. Just come on in.
Just come on in, just like you are. And you also have to leave room for God to do his work. Right. For God to prick the heart, for God to give that person, you know, the desire to do it different. Doesn't have to be like me, but maybe he or she wants to do it different, you know, but we don't give God room to do his work. Right. You know, we want to get, I think someone used the example of, we want to catch the fish and hold it over the boat and scale it and clean it before we bring it into the boat. No, get that fish, all of them, bring them into the boat, right? And let's work from there. But thank you for that. Thank you for that. So I know that we also talked about marginalized people within the ministry. You know, Dante, you really hit that on the head. Just share some of what you shared with us dealing with the marginalized, because that's a huge group.
You want to do it now or go to commercial?
You know what? I want to go to a commercial first. Because I'm gonna be in trouble with the producer if I don't. So we gonna go to a commercial. We come back. You guys get ready. Don't go anywhere. Stick around. All right. We'll be right back.
This is Tammy from Tammy's Take, and you're watching Pyro Media Network.
Hey, how y'all doing? Real quick, this is Daryl Walter, host of the Daryl Walter Show. I know. And you are watching Pyro Media Network.
Hey, it's Dr. Nicole D. Vick from Dr. Victorious, and you're watching Pyro Media Network.
All right, so we are back. We're back from our commercial break. And so before we left, we were getting ready to talk about the marginalized sects or different societies or groups within the church or outside the church, really, how we as ministry, how we as church, we're going to reach outside the walls, right? Because that's what we have to do, honestly, so that we can reach these people and we can bring them in so they can develop and build their own relationships with God. Go ahead, Dr. Tante, talk to us about that.
Yeah, basically, real quick, because, this is my wheelhouse. I think that when people hear the word inclusivity, and all of that, they immediately go to sexual orientation, especially when they come to the church, because we have inclusive ministries, progressive ministries, affirming ministries, all of that. And we talk about marginalization. Some people in their ignorance, and ignorance is not a bad word, also go to sexual orientation or the LGBTQ community. So I love the fact that during this workshop, I was able to level the playing field. And when I asked the participants about who would you consider to be marginalized, many of them did not even realize they were a part of marginalized groups. Right. Women, marginalized, elders, marginalized, people from social economic backgrounds, people without a high school, college degree. Marginalization can cover a multitude of individuals, and some people not realizing that they're part of a marginalized community will instantly look at other communities and say, aha, you should not be here, or the Bible is talking about you. And that's not the case. And we think about the life of Christ literally kicked it with the marginalized. I mean, the marginalized was his homies. That's all he rocked with was the marginalized. And I think when we think about that, and we think about the church as a whole, the church should be in mass filled with marginalized individuals, all trying to get a closer relationship and a closer walk. But what we notice, unfortunately, in a lot of churches, there's a level of privilege and hierarchy, and people assume that because they've been at a certain space for X amount of time, are there in certain roles, certain leaders, certain titles that they are above marginalization. And it's like, no, because once you step foot back outside these church doors, guess what? And guess who you are? You're going to be checking the same boxes those people you're looking at and judging are checking as well. So I think that when we talk about inclusivity as a whole, I would love to see us do away with inclusivity, meaning the sexually marginalized. Inclusive churches should include everybody, regardless, and let God do the work if there's work to be done. And I think because we have fallen into these ideas, well, if God has not changed them, I'm going to step in and change them for God. And it's like, that's not what God told you to do. God told you to love them. That's it. Love them, embrace them, and welcome them. All that changing stuff, leave that up to me if change is necessary. Yes. So the conversations, I love seeing the aha moments and the light bulbs come on for a lot of people. And then also diving into the part that I did about church hurt and trauma and seeing how many leaders that are actively involved in ministry have experienced church hurt, dealing with church hurt, are not healed from church hurt. Yet these are our leaders. And I think these are the kind of conversations that we need to have in our spaces of worship so that we can be healed leaders and lead others to healing. But if we're leading from a place of hurt and trauma, guess what? We're now bleeding on the people. And that's not fair to the ministry as a whole. Because like you always say, hurt people. And that's what we're seeing. And unfortunately, because my hurt doesn't match your hurt, I'm going to out hurt you. I'm not as hurt as you. And we try to find a way to justify it. And it really goes down to pedagogy of the oppressed. The oppressed are oppressing others because they've reached a level of survival that they feel they're better than. And I'm trying to do all of that so we can really come into the church and say, listen, on Sunday, I barely made it. Me too, me too, me too, and me too. We are all here together, so let's worship God.
Yes, absolutely. And I also think too, because you touched on this as well about creating safe spaces in the church, making just sure that the church itself is a safe space.
Right.
And even in some of our questions for our audience, there were a lot of people who felt like it was not a safe space for them.
Right. It's true. I mean, if your ushers are mean,
right,
that's what people are going to see before they even get into their seats. Right. If they're greeted by a mean usher, they're already on edge and on guard before they even hear the praise team. Before they see the dance ministry, before they hear the word of God, they're already ticked off because the usher was hostile, or the usher went up and down them because of what they had on, or the usher was like, oh, you smell like alcohol. You smell like, oh, you might want to sit back here. Well, wait a minute. I'm trying to get close to the fire. Hold on. So I think when we talk about safe churches, it goes beyond the pastor preaching hurtful messages. It really starts with the people. Upon entry, is your church welcoming of all people? Because the pastor can be inclusive, affirming, all kind of stuff. But if the people out there working the floor are not, you got a mess on your hands. So it starts with leadership as a whole across the board. To have a welcoming church, you got to have a welcoming flock of people.
Right. I think the leaders are those, like you say, those who you encounter when you first make that move toward the front door of the church. They're a reflection of what that ministry is. And so they represent the pastor, because people ultimately hold the pastor responsible for the temperature of his church, the temperature of her church, how that church looks, how they behave, how they get down, how they handle people. And so, like you said, if you have a mean usher, or if you have some nasty greeters outside, first of all, I just don't even understand how greet and nasty go in the same sentence. Why are you being a greeter if you got a bad attitude? So that right there is just, I don't know. But people do want these safe spaces, They want to feel like you hear them, that you value them. People want to feel valued. especially at church.
Yes,
And you're
that's
talking about the marginalized. I remember being in church and singing in the choir. And I remember this particular Sunday, there was a drunk man came in the church. He came in the church and he was visibly drunk, right? And he came in the building. And I remember we had a pretty mean usher who watched that door. And she was not letting him get past that back row where all the ushers and those people sat, right? She made him sit. He was trying to get up and go toward the front. My father-in-law, Bishop C.A. Irvin, was preaching at the time. And I think that man was ahead of his time, because I promise you, the things that we're talking about, oh, he was all for it. You hear me? So I remember this particular Sunday when that man was sitting back there, and he was kind of loud, and he smelled, like he had been drinking, and he looked, the certain part, if you will, like dirty, and like he had been living on the street, honestly. And the usher was working hard trying to keep him back there. And Papa finally said, "Daughter, let him go. Come, son, come to the front." And the man made his way to the front and he prayed for him. That's ministry.
That's ministry.
That's ministry. But you wouldn't be surprised. Some people would be surprised at the number of people that were just giving side eyes, looking at this man, coming, because he had a stench, But that's what ministry is. Like you said, we're trying to get outside the walls and get to the people that nobody wants to talk to.
Yeah. If you're going to get drunk, don't come to church.
Exactly.
Yeah, but you get drunk at home. You do all your stuff at home, but you come to church spritz down and polished.
Right.
So,
right. Right. And I think, Patrick, you had kind of mentioned something just kind of related to like the tradition, how tradition and theology, that right there can, if it's done correctly, it can build connections. But if it's not done correctly, we can drive wedges, we can harm people, where people have what we talked about too, Dante, that church hurt, So can you kind of go into that just a tiny bit?
Sure.
On what you talked about?
So when theology declares every person is made in the image of God, and that is imago Dei in Latin, the image of God, we lead like we believe that, and that's healing in action. So when we can respect and really value what God has placed in every man, and that is his image and likeness in every person. And so what happens is that if we use our traditions to exclude people, then we are following after the patterns of men, and we're really not looking to encourage and uplift and really it is people for whom Christ died. And so as Dante mentioned, Jesus hung out with everybody.
Yeah.
So he wasn't exclusive to the religious crowd. He actually didn't like them too much. And so it is about I see it as all encompassing. We should encompass everybody because the Lord encompassed us all, and no one should be excluded. But what happens oftentimes is that our traditions, our ideology, as we mentioned earlier about how people aren't leaving God, they're leaving institutions because we're so institutionalized. We can't see the people for the institution. And so I learned a long time ago, people are our greatest assets. And so we don't have the people, then what are we doing? Because people are our business. They're supposed to be. They're supposed to be our business. And so we have to learn how to appreciate our traditions. Traditions in and of themselves, there's nothing wrong with them. It is when we use them to browbeat people, use them above people, then we've lost what it was or what it is that Christ came to do. He came to redeem us all. He came to meet us exactly where we are. And so traditions have a way of being all exclusive. It's like oftentimes I refer to the church as like a members only club. And so, if you just want to hang out with you and yours, do your thing, because that tells me that you're really not interested in people.
Right. Yeah, and you're right. It really is all about the people. And so that's why it's also important for us as leaders to make sure that we are emotionally and spiritually intelligent. We can't just be out there, just triggered by everything and everyone and not addressing and engaging people in an emotionally intelligent way, in a way that shows love and demonstrates that you're well, right? You're well, so that you can deal with people in a way that they feel safe with you. Because I've dealt with leaders in the church, as a young person. Oh my gosh, I don't know. Maybe they wasn't well. I don't know, but it didn't feel well the way they treated me, and I didn't feel safe with them. I remember once being a young woman, just a young woman, and probably was cute or whatever, and so some of the older women in the church would hold that against you, right? And I remember being up doing the announcements. And this lady, I didn't do her announcement right, child. She came from all the way from the back of the church. And she was getting ready to let me have it. And she came marching up that side aisle. And my father-in-law put his big old gigantic hand out there. He said, "No, daughter, leave her alone." That created a safe space for me. I knew I was protected.
Yeah.
Because she was getting ready to let me have it. But I just remember being called a Jezebel. I remember, and I'm thinking, well, now, knowing what a Jezebel represents, I was not a Jezebel, right? But because I had on a red dress and I had on some, black shoes and little red lipstick, then I became a Jezebel. And it was just so many things that I experienced as a young person in the church. I'm really surprised that I survived it. Honestly.
I think that there was a comment, I think Cyrus said it when he said some people want a safe space to be mean. And that's not the point of a safe space. I think that is a critical thing to say, because when we think about just the Black church specifically, when we look historically, the Black church was where a lot of Black people found affirmation and power. Because outside the four walls of that church, you were the N-word. You were the maid. You were the bus boy. You was this. Walk with your head held down.
Person.
Walk with your head held down. You were boy. But inside those four walls, you were pastor. You're elevated. Everyone caters to you. You're getting the meals, all of that. You're the first lady. You're over the deaconess board. So inside the church, you are empowered to just say all that. Unfortunately, like your workshop, your session of the workshop taught, Cole, was about emotional intelligence. And a lot of times we'll bring that trauma from the outside world into the church, and then we'll release it on the people. And we use that power to have some sort of authority to matter in this very hostile and racist world that we live in. But in the church, I can be in a position of authority and tell people what to do the same way they're telling me what to do outside of the four walls.
On my job or wherever.
Right. This new generation, they are pushing back against that because they're like, hey, I know you're my elder, but I make just as much money as you. I got a house just like you. I got a car just like you. You probably need a loan from me, so we're going to level this all out. And I get you're my elder, but you're not going to talk to me any old kind of way because I'm also grown. So
Yeah.
I think we're seeing a changing of the tides. And when you're raised up in that respect your elder politics, you kind of clutching your pearls like, did this kid just tell me to be quiet? But
Yeah.
was I wrong? Yes.
Right.
Was
Right.
I bullying them? Yes.
Yes.
Was I dumping on them because I got stuff going on outside? Yes.
Yes.
So we gotta own the part we play with all of this as well. And that's why I really love your portion, because you pulled in the therapy side of all this and the real healing side of all this. Yes, we pray to God, but a lot of us need some couch time with a therapist.
Yep.
To unpack some
couch time and maybe a pill or two.
Right. Before you be that drunk man trying to get to the front row.
Right, exactly. Too, and here's the thing. The sad part about, like, I think it was Cyrus who talked about, being a safe space for people to be mean, and then you're talking about people feeling empowered being in that space of the church, because now here I'm a great leader, I'm a great person, I'm this big shot in the church. But then you have people who want to be a part so badly that they will accept that type of behavior from leaders. They will accept being spoken to rudely and I've heard, pastors talk to their armor bearers. I'm like, wait, what? Who were they talking to? I couldn't dare imagine saying some of the things that I've heard being said to their staff members. I wouldn't dream of saying that to the people that serve us.
Yes.
I adore and appreciate the people that serve us. But if you're not well emotionally yourself, if you're being triggered by everything you see and what you hear, and you're not taking care of your own emotional wellness, then of course you're going to bring that mindset to your leadership or whatever your position is. You're going to bring that same thing to the church, and you'll be triggered by what people say. You'll be triggered by what somebody is wearing. You'll be triggered by all the things that you see. And before you know it, people feel unsafe with you. They feel unsafe in your presence. So, it's so much that we talked about. It's so much that we dealt with. And I feel like people were helped. I feel like we were doing our best to create a space where people felt comfortable enough to really speak their mind. But that is something that has to be massaged, because people are not used to speaking their truth in the church. They're not used to, they're not used to that. Go ahead, Dante.
We have to normalize the importance of mental health within the church. The church really pushes spiritual health, and I get that. But if you can't be spiritually healthy and mentally unhealthy, you're off balance. You're off balance. So teaching folks to pray is one thing, but teaching them to learn how to process their emotions, how to handle their emotions, how to navigate their emotions, that's critical. And I think the church needs to become a space for healthy conversations about mental health. If we're going to really be holistic in our wellness approaches, we got to incorporate mental health with trained professionals, not just somebody that's read Ayanna Van Zant's latest book. I mean, trained professionals that understand the importance of good mental health and can provide people with tools, practical tools they can utilize in concert with their reading of the scripture. It is so important, especially right now in this dispensation in time. We are watching the world be turned upside down. People are not well. They're just not well. And we have to create that balance within the church. It is so important to do. It's important to do. That's why me and Patrick said we had to have you come in and be our closer at the end to pull in that mental health piece, because we had the theological in the beginning. We had the practical, which was mine, but we needed that mental health component to really create a well-rounded conversation.
Yeah, we need to make people feel comfortable with saying, I'm not well. We need to make people feel, like you said, normalize it to that people can say, you know what, can you recommend someone that I can go and talk to? I have a friend that is a grief counselor, and I promise you, that every person that I encounter, because she's such a great grief counselor, that I always recommend them to her, because I feel like, when you deal with the loss of something or someone, you need to process that. Yes, we can pray for you. We can lay hands on you and all those things. We can read scripture to you, but you also need, someone who can process that with you outside of that religious or that spiritual realm. So I want to ask this, because we have just a few minutes. I love what we did. I love the feedback that we got from our surveys that we took. I want to ask you all, where do you see this particular workshop going? What is the goal for this?
Well, one of the things that Dr. Dante and I talked about was to have this workshop for both of our churches. We wanted to see and experience the dynamics of two different types of churches, leadership teams coming together, and then how they will process the information that we shared. And so we also talked about being able to form it in such a way where we can take it throughout the city, take it throughout the state and the country, because I believe the information is vital. And it is important for us to help, I think, ministries, churches, and leaders to create those safe spaces that we talked about.
Yeah,
I thought it was very interesting, and I was really blessed when Dante at the workshop, he asked people how many feel like your church is a safe space.
right.
The green flag was yes, and the red flag.
That was
Did we have any green flags? I don't even know if we had any green flags.
We had like two
green
40
flags.
I
people.
know both of mine up.
So but when you think about that, why isn't the church a safe space where you can really express how you feel and where you are, what's going on? And so many of us, we talk about emotional intelligence and spiritual intelligence, but we don't even know what is emotional intelligence. What does that mean? And so many of us, we don't know that has it's about sensing where people are. It's about sensing what people are carrying. And we look beyond that because, we're ready to lay hands. Like you said, we're ready to cast the devil out, and it's not that. So people need to talk. People need to be free. People need to have the wherewithal to really to really show themselves and express themselves without being judged, without being penalized. And
That's right.
I think I'm hopeful, and I believe that we'll be able to go to different facilities and ministries, churches, and express and have these workshops. And I'm sure that it won't just be sacred spaces. We'll be able to include secular spaces as well, because the information is vital and is necessary.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, Dante, give me 1 minute of where you see this going.
No, just really echoing what Patrick said. I think that I just want to now open it up to the church. We've tackled the leaders, but I would love to just say, okay, listen, we're now having this workshop for all to come, and let's talk about this, because there's a lot of future leaders out there, or people who are resistant to becoming a leader because they're like, I don't want to enter into that toxic environment. Yeah. So just to open it up now, would love to just do a road show with it, just tour it, and really build the momentum, because it's really time for a change. We all know too many people who will not step foot into the church again, but they love God, but they're forsaking the fellowship. And we should all be worshiping God together, because none of us are better than the other. So that's what I'm trying to get with this.
That's true. Well, thank you both for being here tonight, for taking the time out of your schedules. Yeah, that was our picture that we took at the end of the workshop on that day. What a great team. What a great team. I'm just grateful and honored to be a part of this team. And I'm excited about where it's going. Hey, Frida. I'm excited about where it's going, how God is going to elevate it and us in this work that we want to do. And I'm excited about the road show. So thank you everyone for coming tonight, and thank you for taking the time out to be with us and to listen to what we had to say. This is challenging for some leaders. This is some challenging information. It's going to cause an uneasiness and unsettledness, but after things get shaken up a bit, they begin to settle down and people get into their proper places. But thank you for being here tonight. I love you. Thank you, family. Thank you, friends of It's Just Kim. Thank you for taking the time out to be with me tonight. I love you. You take care and you stay safe. God bless you. Bye.
Thank you for watching Pyro Media Network. For more information, please visit pyromedianetwork.com.